Blood drips from the Alpha King's claws as he tears apart his own throne room in a feral rage, his mind slipping further into madness with each passing hour. The curse eating him alive has already claimed 3 healers' lives when they dared to touch his poisoned flesh. The marble pillars bear fresh gouges from razor-sharp claws. Tapestries hang in shreds, their golden threads scattered across the floor like fallen stars. And in the center of it all stands Kieran Blackthorn, the most powerful Alpha King in 3 centuries, destroying everything he's sworn to protect. His chest heaves as he fights for control, muscles straining beneath skin that ripples with an unnatural heat. The curse burns through his veins like liquid fire, turning his own wolf against him. Where once there had been perfect harmony between man and beast, now there is only war. Your Majesty. Chancellor Aldrich's voice trembles from the doorway. The healers are here. Kieran's head snaps up, golden eyes blazing with an inhuman light. More sheep for slaughter? The words come out as a growl, barely recognizable as human speech. His wolf claws at the inside of his skin, desperate to break free, to tear apart everything in sight. The curse has twisted their bond into something monstrous. 3 healers step forward, their faces pale but determined. They've heard what happened to the others, how the curse burned through flesh and bone, leaving nothing but ash. But the reward is too great to ignore. Riches beyond measure, status that would elevate their entire bloodlines. We believe we can help, the eldest healer says, her hands glowing with soft blue light. If we work together. Her words die as Kieran's lips pull back in a snarl. Come then. Join your predecessors. The first healer reaches out, her power flowing toward the king. The moment her magic touches his skin, she screams. The curse lashes out like a living thing, consuming her healing light and turning it back on itself. She crumbles to dust in seconds. The second healer tries a different approach, weaving protective barriers around herself. It doesn't matter. The curse tears through her defenses like they're made of paper. Her ashes join the first. The third healer turns to run, but Kieran moves faster than humanly possible. His claws rake across her throat before she can take a single step. Pathetic. He stands over the carnage, his chest rising and falling with each ragged breath. The curse pulses through him, stronger now, fed by the blood it spilled. Chancellor Aldrich backs away from the door. My lord, perhaps we should. Leave me. Kieran's voice cracks like a whip. The Chancellor flees, his footsteps echoing down the marble corridors. Soon, word will spread throughout the castle. The king grows worse. The healers are all dead. The kingdom teeters on the edge of collapse. But in the castle's lowest levels, where servants scurry through dim tunnels like mice, someone has been listening. Zara Nightwind crouches behind a grate in the heating duct, her heart pounding so hard she's sure everyone in the throne room can hear it. She shouldn't be here. Servants aren't allowed in the upper levels, especially not defective Omegas who can't even shift. But she had to know. The rumors have been swirling for weeks. The king is dying, his wolf turning against him, and no one can save him. She's seen the bodies of the healers carried out, their faces frozen in eternal screams. Now she understands why. Through the grate, she watches Kieran sink to his knees among the ashes of the dead. His whole body shakes as he fights the beast inside him. She can see it, the golden threads that should bind man and wolf together, twisted into knots of pure agony. The curse hasn't just poisoned him. It's severing the very essence of what makes him whole. She's always been able to see the threads, the spiritual energy that connects every werewolf to their other half. It's why her birth pack called her defective. She could see the bonds but couldn't form her own. They cast her out when she was barely 16, leaving her to survive on scraps and charity. But looking at the king now, she realizes her curse might be his salvation. The threads around him pulse with sick, black energy. She can see where they're fraying, where the curse eats away at them bit by bit. Soon there will be nothing left, and Kieran Blackthorn will become something that's neither man nor wolf, a monster that will destroy everything in its path. She should leave. She should crawl back to her tiny servants' quarters and pretend she never saw this. But as she watches the most powerful alpha in the world break apart, her heart twists with unexpected pain. He looks so alone. Before she can stop herself, Zara pushes open the grate. The metal clangs against stone as she drops into the throne room, landing hard on her knees. Kieran's head snaps up, his nostrils flaring as he catches her scent. Omega. The word comes out like a curse. Did I not say I wanted to be alone? Your Majesty, her voice cracks. Up close, he's even more terrifying. His eyes burn with golden fire, and she can see the curse spreading across his skin like black veins. I can help. He laughs, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. You? A defective little servant thinks she can succeed where masters have failed? I can see it, she whispers. The curse. I can see what it's doing to your bond. Kieran goes very still. What did you say? The threads, she continues, taking a shaky step closer. The spiritual energy that connects you to your wolf. The curse is cutting them apart. That's why it hurts so much. That's why your wolf is fighting you. Impossible. But his voice wavers. No one can see the bonds. They're felt, not seen. I've always been able to see them. She takes another step, and another, drawn forward by something she can't name. In everyone. Except myself. The curse senses her approach and lashes out, sending waves of killing magic toward her. She should be dead instantly, just like the healers. But instead of burning her alive, the curse hesitates. Kieran stares in shock as the black energy swirls around her without finding purchase. How? I don't know. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 2. Kieran awoke to sunlight streaming through his chamber windows, real sunlight, not the hellish red glow that had painted his world for months. His chest rose and fell with easy breaths, no longer fighting the burning acid that had eaten away at his lungs. For the first time since the curse took hold, his wolf lay quiet in his mind, not clawing to break free but resting peacefully alongside his human consciousness. He sat up slowly, testing his body's responses. No pain shot through his spine. No rage clouded his thoughts. The golden threads that bound him to his wolf, threads he'd never been able to see until yesterday, hummed with gentle harmony instead of the discordant shriek that had driven him to the edge of madness. Zara, he breathed, her name coming to his lips like a prayer. The memory rushed back, her small hand pressed against his chest, golden light flowing between them, the way the curse had simply stopped. Not destroyed, he realized with growing clarity, but held at bay. Contained by whatever power lived in her touch. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and immediately felt the curse stir. Without her connection, the black poison began seeping back through his veins, though much slower than before. His wolf whined softly, already missing the peace her presence had brought. Where was she? Kieran strode from his chambers, his bare feet silent on the marble floors. Servants scattered from his path, their eyes wide with surprise. Gone was the wild-eyed beast who had terrorized the castle for weeks. In his place walked a king, controlled, purposeful, and very much alive. He found her in the castle's infirmary, lying so still she might have been carved from pale marble. Dr. Whitmore, the pack's physician, hovered over her with obvious concern. How long has she been unconscious? Kieran's voice carried the quiet authority that had made him the most feared Alpha King in generations. 3 days, Your Majesty. Dr. Whitmore bowed deeply. Whatever she did to help you, it took everything out of her. Her vital signs are stable, but she won't wake. 3 days. Kieran felt something twist in his chest at the thought of her suffering while he'd slept peacefully. He approached the bed slowly, studying her face. Even unconscious, she was beautiful, delicate features that spoke of Omega gentleness, but with a stubborn tilt to her chin that suggested hidden strength. Has anyone else touched her? He asked. No, Your Majesty. I thought it wise to be cautious, given what happened to the other healers. Smart man. Kieran reached out tentatively, his fingers hovering inches from her skin. Even without contact, he could feel the echo of her power calling to his curse, holding it back like a dam against flood waters. The moment his fingertips brushed her forehead, several things happened at once. Zara's eyes snapped open with a gasp. Golden light flared between them, brighter than before. And somewhere deep in Kieran's mind, he felt something slot into place, a connection that went beyond healing, beyond the physical world, straight into the very essence of their souls. Your Majesty, she whispered, her voice hoarse from days of silence. You're safe, he murmured, his hand sliding down to cup her cheek. The curse retreated further at the touch, and his wolf practically purred with contentment. You're safe, and you saved me. But even as relief flooded through him, Kieran felt something else, a strange doubling in his consciousness. Through their new bond, he could sense Zara's emotions as if they were his own. Her wonder at being alive. Her confusion over what had happened. And underneath it all, a bone-deep terror of what she'd become. Because something had changed in her too. I can feel you, she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. In my mind. And there's something else, something that wasn't there before. She struggled to sit up, and Kieran helped her, his hands steady on her shoulders. The moment she was upright, power exploded through the room, not his power, but hers. Every piece of metal in the infirmary began to vibrate. The windows rattled in their frames. And deep in Zara's chest, something wild and primal let out its first howl. Impossible, Dr. Whitmore breathed. But Kieran understood immediately. Touching him hadn't just awakened her ability to heal the curse, it had awakened the wolf that had always lived inside her, dormant and waiting for the right catalyst. You're a wolf, he said softly. She's finally free. Tears streamed down Zara's face as she felt the presence in her mind for the first time, wild and beautiful and completely hers. I thought I was broken, she sobbed. My whole life, everyone said I was defective. You were never broken. Kieran's thumbs wiped away her tears, and through their bond, she felt the absolute certainty of his words. You were waiting. Waiting for what? For me. The truth of it settled between them like a physical weight. They were bonded now, their souls linked in ways that went far beyond normal mate connections. Through Kieran's eyes, Zara could see the golden threads that bound all werewolves to their other halves. Through her touch, he could keep the curse at bay. They needed each other to survive. Your Majesty. Chancellor Aldrich's voice cut through the moment like a blade. The Royal Council demands an immediate audience. Kieran didn't look away from Zara's face. Tell them I'll meet with them when I'm ready. I'm afraid they're quite insistent, my lord. They're concerned about recent developments. Now Kieran did turn, his eyes flashing with dangerous gold. What developments? The young woman's sudden appearance. Her unprecedented success where others failed. There are whispers, Your Majesty. Suggestions that dark magic might be involved. Dark magic? Zara's voice came out as barely a whisper. Through their bond, Kieran felt her fear spike. She'd spent her whole life being cast out, rejected, called defective. Now they wanted to label her as something even worse. They want to test her, Aldrich continued reluctantly. The traditional trials for those suspected of forbidden practices. Kieran was on his feet in an instant, his power filling the room like a physical force. Every wolf in the castle would feel it, the fury of an alpha king protecting what was his. Anyone who tries to harm her will answer to me personally, he growled. Your Majesty, Aldrich pressed on carefully, there's more. Lady Seraphina has arrived early for the wedding. She's requesting an immediate meeting with you both. The wedding. In all the chaos of the curse and Zara's miraculous healing, Kieran had almost forgotten about his arranged marriage to the Silver Moon heir. A political alliance that would unite two of the most powerful wolf territories in the kingdom. An alliance that now felt like a cage. Through their bond, he felt Zara's heart break a little. She'd known, of course, that a king would never be free to choose his own mate. But feeling it and facing it were two different things entirely. "I should go," she whispered, starting to pull away from his touch. "No." His hands tightened on her shoulders, and she gasped as the curse immediately surged forward without her contact. Black veins appeared along his neck, crawling toward his face like grasping fingers. "I have to." Her own hands came up to cover his, golden light flowing between them to push the curse back. "You have duties. A kingdom to think about. I won't let them hurt you. And I won't let this curse kill you." She looked into his eyes, and he saw steel beneath the gentleness. "We'll figure this out. But right now, you need to go be a king." Before he could argue, the infirmary doors burst open. 3 council members swept in, their faces grave with suspicion, followed by a woman who could only be Lady Seraphina Silvermoon. She was everything a future queen should be, tall, elegant, with the silver blonde hair that marked her bloodline and the kind of refined beauty that graced royal portraits. Her ice blue eyes swept the room, taking in every detail. Kieran's hands on Zara's shoulders, the golden light still flickering between them, the way they looked at each other like the rest of the world had ceased to exist. "How touching," Seraphina said, her voice like silk over steel. "I see the rumors about your mysterious healer are true." Kieran straightened but didn't let go of Zara. "Lady Seraphina. You're early." "Indeed. I thought my betrothed might need support during his illness." Her eyes narrowed as she studied the connection between them. "Though it appears he's found comfort elsewhere." Council member Thorne, an elderly alpha with more ambition than sense, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we must insist on testing this woman immediately. The circumstances of your healing are highly suspicious." "Suspicious?" Kieran's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "No common Omega should possess such power," Thorne continued, oblivious to his king's growing rage. "We believe she may have made a pact with dark forces. The timing of her appearance, the way she gained access to your private chambers, it suggests careful planning." Through their bond, Kieran felt Zara's sudden, sharp recognition. Not of the accusation, but of something else. Something that made her blood run cold. "You're right about one thing," she said quietly, her gaze fixed on Lady Seraphina. The timing wasn't coincidental. Every eye in the room turned to her. Seraphina's perfect composure never wavered, but Kieran felt a flicker of something. Guilt? Fear? "What do you mean?" he asked. Zara's hand tightened on his, and through their connection, images began to flow. Not her memories, but his, locked away, suppressed by the curse's influence on his mind. Gradually, piece by piece, the truth began to emerge. "The curse," Zara whispered. "I can see how it was cast. It wasn't random, Kieran. Someone who knew your magical signature, your bloodline, your exact vulnerabilities. Someone who had access to your personal chambers, your food, your..." Her gaze snapped to Seraphina, and the truth hit them both like a physical blow. "Your betrothal gift," Zara breathed. "The silver pendant you've worn every day for 6 months." Kieran's hand flew to his throat, where a small silver amulet hung on a chain, Seraphina's engagement present, meant to symbolize their future bond. The moment his fingers touched it, the curse flared with hungry pleasure. "Clever girl," Seraphina said softly, her mask finally slipping. "Though not quite clever enough." The council members spun toward her in shock, but she was already moving. Power erupted from her hands, not the clean energy of a normal werewolf, but something older, darker. Forbidden magic that reeked of blood sacrifice and twisted spells. "You tried to kill me," Kieran snarled, ripping the cursed pendant from his neck. The moment it left his skin, the curse's hold weakened dramatically. "I tried to control you," Seraphina corrected. "A maddened king is so much easier to manipulate than a strong one. With you slowly losing your mind, it would have been simple to position myself as the stable, rational voice guiding the kingdom." The Silvermoon territory, Chancellor Aldrich breathed in horror. "You were planning a complete takeover." "I was planning to rule," she snapped. As I was meant to. Her ice-blue eyes fixed on Zara with pure hatred. Until this little nobody ruined everything. Dark magic swirled around Seraphina like a living storm, but Kiran was already moving. His power met hers in a clash that shook the entire castle, alpha strength against forbidden sorcery. But he was still weak from months of the curse, and she'd had years to prepare. The fight was brutal and brief. When the magical energies cleared, Kiran lay unconscious on the floor, blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. The curse, no longer held back by Zara's touch and free of its silver focus, began raging through his system with renewed fury. Now then, Seraphina said pleasantly, turning to Zara. Let's discuss your new role in my kingdom. But Zara wasn't listening. She was kneeling beside Kiran, her hands pressed to his chest, feeling the curse tear through him like wildfire. Without the silver pendant to channel it, the poison was burning through his body with desperate hunger, trying to finish what it had started. He was dying. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Zara's newly awakened wolf began to growl. You made a mistake, she said quietly, her voice carrying an undertone of something wild and dangerous. Did I? Zara looked up, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly powerful. The golden threads she'd always been able to see suddenly made perfect sense. She understood now why she'd been born different, why she'd never been able to shift. She hadn't been meant to be just another wolf. She'd been meant to be something much more rare. You assumed I was just a healer, she said, rising to her feet. Golden light began to flow around her, not just from her hands but from her entire body. You never considered what else I might be. The light grew brighter, and suddenly the council members could see what Kiran had glimpsed in the throne room, the golden threads that connected every werewolf to their inner wolf. But more than that, they could see the much rarer silver threads that bound mate souls together across lifetimes. And wrapped around both Zara and the unconscious king, pulsing with power that made the air itself sing, was the rarest connection of all, the platinum bond of true mates, magnified by Blackthorn royal blood and Zara's unique gift. A soul weaver, Chancellor Aldrich breathed in awe. Seraphina's face went white. Impossible. They're myths. Legends. Apparently not. Zara's power continued to build, and she could feel Kiran's wolf calling to her across the bond, begging for help. And unlike your cheap curse magic, what I can do doesn't require blood sacrifice or stolen power. The golden light exploded outward, washing over everyone in the room. Where it touched Seraphina, she screamed, her borrowed dark magic burning away like morning mist. Where it touched Kiran, the curse recoiled as if struck by lightning. But Zara wasn't just healing him this time. Through their mate bond, through the silver threads that connected their very souls, she was reweaving the fundamental fabric of what he was. Strengthening the connections that made him whole, building defenses that no curse would ever be able to penetrate again. When the light finally faded, Kiran's eyes opened, clear, focused, and completely free of the curse's influence for the first time in months. Hello, mate, he said softly, and Zara felt her newly awakened wolf purr with satisfaction. Behind them, Seraphina lay unconscious, her dark magic stripped away. The council members stared in shocked silence. And somewhere in the distance, the entire werewolf kingdom felt the moment when their alpha king finally claimed his true mate. The forbidden bond was forbidden no longer. It was destiny. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. 3 weeks after the confrontation in the infirmary, Zara had learned to live with two constant companions, the warm pulse of Kiran's soul intertwined with hers, and the cold weight of suspicious eyes following her every move. Officially, she was still just a servant who had gotten lucky, a failed healer whose desperate attempt to help had somehow succeeded where masters had died. The truth about her soul weaver abilities, about the mate bond that now connected her to the king, remained known only to a trusted few. It was safer that way, Kiran had insisted, at least until they could unravel the full extent of the conspiracy against him. But keeping secrets, Zara was learning, was exhausting work. She made her way through the castle's lower levels in the pre-dawn darkness, carrying a tray of medicinal teas to Master Aldrich's chambers. The head healer had requested her assistance personally, an honor that would have thrilled her weeks ago, but now made her stomach twist with unease. Because through her bond with Kieran, she could feel something wrong in the castle's very foundation. The curse might be contained, but its poison ran deeper than anyone realized. Master Aldrich's chambers were located in the East Wing, close enough to the royal quarters for quick access but far enough to maintain the proper hierarchy. Zara knocked softly on the heavy oak door. "Enter," came the gravelly voice from within. She found the elderly healer hunched over his work table, grinding herbs in a marble mortar. His white hair gleamed in the candlelight, and his weathered hands moved with the precision of someone who had spent decades perfecting his craft. "Ah, Zara," he said without looking up. "Perfect timing. I need your assistance with the king's morning tonic." Zara set down the tray carefully, her eyes scanning the various bottles and pouches scattered across the table. "Of course, Master Aldrich. What would you have me do?" "The lunar moss needs to be prepared fresh," he said, gesturing to a small cloth bag. "Grind it to powder, fine as silk. The king's constitution is still delicate after his ordeal." She nodded and reached for the mortar, but something made her pause. Through her enhanced senses, she caught a whiff of the herb's scent, earthy, bitter, with an underlying sweetness that made her newly awakened wolf recoil in instinctive fear. "Master Aldrich," she said carefully, "forgive my ignorance, but I've never worked with lunar moss before. What are its healing properties?" The old man's hands stilled for just a moment before resuming their grinding. "It strengthens the connection between human and wolf consciousness," he said smoothly. "Essential for someone recovering from such trauma to his fundamental nature." But even as he spoke, Zara could see through her soul-weaver's sight the way the herb's spiritual signature writhed with darkness. Not healing energy, but something that would tear at the very bonds she'd worked so hard to repair. This wasn't medicine. It was poison. Her hands trembled as she began grinding the lunar moss, her mind racing. How long had Master Aldrich been treating Kieran? Months, she remembered. Since the curse first took hold. And every day, he'd been giving the king tonics and treatments that weren't fighting the curse, they were feeding it. "There's a good girl," Aldrich murmured approvingly as she worked. "You have gentle hands. The king is fortunate to have found such a dedicated healer." The words made her skin crawl. She forced herself to smile and nod, playing the part of the grateful servant while her mind catalogued every herb, every bottle, every piece of evidence that could expose this betrayal. "Master Aldrich," she ventured, "I've been wondering, do you know how the curse was cast in the first place? I mean, it must have taken incredible power to target someone as strong as the king." His pale eyes fixed on her with sudden sharpness. "Curious minds can be dangerous things, child. Some knowledge is better left alone." "Of course. I only meant. The king's tonic is ready." He poured the mixture into a crystal goblet, the liquid swirling with an oily, unnatural sheen. "Take it to him immediately. He must drink it while the ingredients are still active." Zara accepted the goblet with steady hands, though everything in her screamed to dash it against the wall. "Right away, Master Aldrich." She made it halfway to the royal chambers before ducking into an empty corridor and pouring the poison tonic into a decorative plant. The poor fern began withering immediately, its leaves turning black and crumbling to ash. Her hands shook as she refilled the goblet with water from a nearby fountain. Through her bond, she could feel Kieran's concern. Her distress was bleeding through their connection, impossible to hide completely. "I'm fine," she projected to him, hoping he would understand the mental communication that came with their mate bond. "But we need to talk. Soon." She sensed his acknowledgement, warm and reassuring despite the distance between them. Whatever was happening, they would face it together. But first, she needed more proof. Over the following days, Zara threw herself into investigation with the desperate intensity of someone racing against time. She volunteered for every task that would give her access to different parts of the castle, memorized the schedules of key players, and slowly began piecing together the web of conspiracy that had nearly destroyed her mate. The breakthrough came when she was cleaning the library late one night and overheard voices from the adjacent study. Growing impatient with your progress. The voice was cultured, aristocratic, unmistakably Prince Marcus, Kieran's younger brother. The girl's interference has complicated matters, Master Aldrich replied. But the damage is temporary. Without regular doses of the amplifying agent, she can't maintain her hold over the curse indefinitely. You assured me he would be dead within 6 months. It's been 8, and now he's stronger than ever. Because she's a soul weaver. Aldrich hissed. Do you have any idea how rare that bloodline is? I thought they were extinct. Zara pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. A soul weaver bloodline? What did that mean? I don't care what she is, Marcus snapped. I care that my brother is still alive and still blocking my path to the throne. Fix this, Aldrich, or I'll find someone who can. My prince, please. The rogue which you hired to create the curse warned us this might happen. The Blackthorn bloodline has always been susceptible to mate bonds. If Kieran has truly claimed this girl, then we'll have to eliminate her along with him. Footsteps approached the door, and Zara scrambled to hide behind a tall bookshelf. Through the gaps between volumes, she watched Prince Marcus emerge, tall and dark like his brother, but with cold eyes that held none of Kieran's warmth or honor. He was followed by Master Aldrich, whose kindly healer's mask had been replaced by something calculating and cruel. Increase the dosage, Marcus ordered. I don't care if it kills him tomorrow or in 100 years, as long as he dies before he can produce an heir. They parted ways, leaving Zara alone with the terrible weight of what she'd learned. Not only had they been slowly poisoning Kieran, but Prince Marcus was willing to commit fratricide for the throne. And somehow, her bloodline, this soul weaver heritage she'd never heard of, was the key to everything. She spent the rest of the night in the castle's ancient archives, searching through dusty tomes and crumbling scrolls. What she found made her hands shake with more than just exhaustion. The moon-blessed bloodline. The last great line of soul weavers. Healers who could see and manipulate the very threads that bound soul to soul, human to wolf. They had been the most powerful healers in werewolf history, capable of mending bonds that others couldn't even perceive. And according to every text she could find, they had been hunted to extinction 3 centuries ago. Every text except one. In a journal hidden behind false shelving, she found the memoir of a castle servant named Elena Nightwind, her great-great-grandmother, according to the family tree carefully recorded in the margin. They came for us in the night, Elena had written. Said we were too powerful, too dangerous to the natural order. But some of us escaped. Some of us learned to hide what we were, to let our gifts lie dormant until the world was ready for us again. The journal went on to describe how the surviving moon-blessed had scattered, taking new names, suppressing their abilities, passing down only whispered stories of what they had once been. Each generation grew weaker, more human, until most forgot they had ever been anything else. But the bloodline remains, Elena had written in her final entry. Waiting. Watching. And someday, when a true Alpha King needs us most, we will rise again. Zara closed the journal with trembling fingers. She wasn't defective. She wasn't broken. She was the culmination of 3 centuries of hidden power, awakened by her mate bond with the most powerful Alpha in generations. No wonder Prince Marcus was terrified of her. The sound of approaching footsteps made her quickly reshelf the journal and gather her cleaning supplies. But as she turned to leave, a familiar voice stopped her cold. Well, well. The little servant girl, studying in the archives like she belongs here. Lady Seraphina emerged from the shadows, her silver hair gleaming in the candlelight. Though she'd been stripped of her dark magic weeks ago, she still carried herself with the arrogance of someone accustomed to power. Lady Seraphina, Zara said carefully. I was just spying, I imagine. Digging into matters that don't concern you. Seraphina circled her like a predator stalking prey. Did you really think no one would notice? The way you've been skulking around, asking questions, volunteering for tasks that give you access to places servants shouldn't go? Zara's newly awakened wolf bristled at the threat in the other woman's voice. I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't. Serafina's smile was sharp as a blade. Just like you don't know why the king's recovery has been so miraculous. Just like you don't know why certain members of the court have been whispering about dark magic and unnatural bonds. If you have accusations to make. Oh, I do. Serafina stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I know what you are, little moon blessed. I know what you can do. And I know that there are those in this castle who would pay handsomely for that information. Zara's blood turned to ice. I don't. Prince Marcus, for instance. He's been quite interested in learning more about his brother's mysterious recovery. Quite willing to reward those who provide useful intelligence. The threat was clear. Serafina might have lost her magical power, but she still had political connections. Still had the ability to make Zara's life hell. What do you want? Zara asked quietly. Simple. Stay away from Kiran. Stop interfering with matters above your station. Return to your proper place as a servant, and I'll keep your secrets. And if I don't? Serafina's smile widened. Then I'm afraid you'll discover just how creative the court can be when dealing with suspected witches. Trials can be so thorough. And the methods of execution quite varied. She swept from the archives, leaving Zara alone with the weight of impossible choices. Protect herself and let Kiran slowly die from the poison still flowing through his system, or fight for her mate and risk exposure that could destroy them both. Through their bond, she felt Kiran's sleeping presence, peaceful now, trusting her to keep him safe. The decision made itself. She would find a way to expose the conspiracy. She would save her mate. Even if it killed her. The next evening brought the formal ball celebrating Kiran's engagement to Serafina, an event that had been planned for months and couldn't be cancelled without causing diplomatic incidents. The great ballroom blazed with crystal chandeliers and gleamed with polished marble, filled with the most powerful werewolf nobles from across the kingdom. Zara watched from the servants' entrance, dressed in her plain brown uniform while the court sparkled in silk and jewels. She'd tried to convince Kiran to delay the announcement, to give her more time to gather evidence against Prince Marcus and Master Aldrich. But political necessity demanded the engagement proceed as planned. At least, that's what everyone expected. Zara felt the moment Kiran entered the ballroom, their bonds singing with his presence even across the crowded space. He looked magnificent in his royal ceremonial clothes, every inch the powerful Alpha King. But she could also feel his reluctance, his growing anger at the pretense they were forced to maintain. Lady Serafina glided to his side, radiant in silver silk that matched her hair. To the watching nobles, they looked like the perfect royal couple. Only Zara could feel Kiran's revulsion through their bond, the way his wolf recoiled from the woman who had tried to destroy him. The formal presentations began, each noble family approaching the throne to offer congratulations and reaffirm their allegiance. Prince Marcus stood at his brother's right hand, playing the role of supportive heir while plotting murder. Master Aldrich hovered nearby, ready with another poison tonic disguised as celebration wine. Zara watched it all with growing horror. They were all complicit, all playing their parts in a deadly game while her mate slowly died in front of them. She couldn't let it continue. Moving with the stealth her wolf heritage provided, Zara slipped into the ballroom proper. Her servant's uniform let her blend with the other staff, invisible to the nobles who considered her beneath notice. She made it halfway across the room before Serafina spotted her. "Guards," the lady called out, her voice cutting through the celebration. "There's an intruder in the ballroom." Every head turned. Every eye fixed on Zara as she stood frozen in the center of the polished floor, caught between the servants she'd tried to blend with and the nobles who saw her as a threat. "She's been spying," Serafina continued, her voice rising with theatrical outrage. "Lurking in shadows, practicing dark arts, seducing our king with unnatural magic." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several hands moved to sword hilts. The circle around Zara tightened like a noose. But before the guards could reach her, Kiran moved. He stepped down from the throne with fluid grace, his power filling the ballroom like a physical force. Every wolf present felt it. The undeniable authority of an Alpha King in his prime. "Stop," he commanded, and the single word froze every person in the room. He walked to Zara slowly, deliberately, his golden eyes never leaving her face. With each step, their bond grew stronger, more visible to those with the sight to see it. When he reached her, he held out his hand. "Lady Seraphina is correct about one thing," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "This woman has indeed used magic on me." Zara felt her heart stop. Was he going to betray her? Sacrifice her to save the kingdom? But when she looked into his eyes, she saw only love. "She saved my life," Kieran continued, taking her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, golden light flared between them, impossible to hide, impossible to deny. "She is my true mate, blessed by the moon herself, and I claim her before all of you as my queen." The ballroom erupted in chaos. Lady Seraphina screamed in fury. Prince Marcus shouted objections about political necessity and diplomatic alliances. Half the nobles called for Zara's execution as a witch, while the other half demanded proof of her worthiness. But Kieran ignored them all. He pulled Zara into his arms and kissed her in front of the entire court, their mate bond blazing with silver fire that no one could deny or dismiss. When they finally broke apart, the ballroom had gone silent. "Any who cannot accept my choice are free to leave," Kieran announced, his arms still wrapped protectively around Zara's waist. "Any who threaten my mate will be considered enemies of the crown." Lord Silvermoon, Seraphina's father, stepped forward with ice in his eyes. "You break a sacred engagement, Your Majesty. The Silvermoon pack will not stand for this insult." "Then don't stand for it," Kieran replied calmly. "The borders are open." One by one, nobles began filing out of the ballroom. Some in anger, others in fear, a few in what looked like relief. Within minutes, half the court had abandoned their king. Prince Marcus was among the last to leave, his face twisted with rage and something that looked like fear. "This isn't over, brother," he said quietly. "No," Kieran agreed. "It isn't." When the ballroom finally emptied, leaving only a handful of loyal nobles and servants, Kieran turned to face those who remained. "War is coming," he said simply. "Those who left tonight will return with armies. They'll call me mad, call my mate a witch, claim I'm unfit to rule." "Your Majesty," Chancellor Aldrich stepped forward, his face grave. "Perhaps if we could find some compromise." "There is no compromise with those who would poison a king," Zara spoke for the first time, her voice carrying clearly in the vast space. Every eye turned to her, and she felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. "I have proof," she continued, looking directly at Master Aldrich. "I know who cast the curse. I know who's been feeding it. And I know why." The head healer's face went white, but before he could speak, the ballroom doors burst open again. Prince Marcus stood in the entrance, no longer alone. Behind him marched 24 armed soldiers wearing the silver and blue of the Silvermoon pack. "Arrest the witch," he commanded. "By order of the true king." The kingdom teetered on the brink of civil war. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The clash of steel rang through the night air as Kieran's forces met Prince Marcus's rebels on the plains outside the capital. What had begun as a political crisis in a ballroom had erupted into full warfare within hours, the kingdom splitting along lines of loyalty that ran deeper than blood. Zara crouched behind the overturned supply wagon that served as her makeshift field hospital, her hands glowing with healing light as she worked to save a young soldier's life. Around her, the sounds of battle raged, the howls of shifted wolves, the crash of weapons, the screams of the dying. Through her bond with Kieran, she could feel him fighting somewhere in the chaos ahead, his wolf form cutting through enemy lines with lethal precision. But she could also feel his exhaustion, the way the old curse still weakened him despite her healing. Every wound he took drained him more than it should, every moment of combat pushed him closer to collapse. "My lady," gasped the soldier she was treating, a boy barely old enough to shift. The prince, he's brought more than just the Silver Moon pack. There are wolves here I don't recognize. Zara's hands stilled for a moment. Through the young man's memories, shared through her healing touch, she saw flashes of the battle, foreign banners she didn't recognize, warriors with markings from distant territories. This wasn't just a civil war anymore. Word of her heritage had spread faster than wildfire, and every ambitious alpha within 1,000 miles had come to claim the last moon blessed for themselves. Rest now, she murmured, her power sealing the worst of his wounds. You're going to be fine. But even as she spoke the words of comfort, Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Something was coming. Something dark and hungry that made her newly awakened wolf whimper in terror. The sensation of wrongness grew stronger, and suddenly she understood. This battle, this chaos, it had all been carefully orchestrated. Not just to remove Kiran from the throne, but to separate her from his protection, to make her vulnerable. Zara. The voice came from behind her, soft and melodious and utterly terrifying. She turned to find Lady Seraphina approaching through the smoke, but this wasn't the elegant noblewoman who had threatened her in the archives. This was something else entirely. Dark power swirled around Seraphina like living shadow, her ice-blue eyes now glowing with unnatural light. The air itself seemed to recoil from her presence. I was wondering when you'd finally show yourself, Zara said, rising slowly to her feet. Around them, the sounds of battle seemed muffled, as if they were speaking from within a bubble of silence. Oh, my dear child, Seraphina laughed, the sound like breaking glass. You think you understand what's happening here? You think this is about Marcus's pathetic grab for power? Isn't it? Marcus is a fool. A useful fool, but still a fool. Seraphina circled her slowly, dark magic trailing from her fingertips. Did you really think I spent months planning Kiran's death just to put that simpleton on the throne? No, darling. This was always about you. The truth hit Zara like a physical blow. You knew. From the beginning, you knew what I was. The last moon blessed? Seraphina's smile was sharp enough to cut. Of course I knew. I've been tracking your bloodline for decades, waiting for the power to finally manifest in someone strong enough to survive what comes next. What comes next? Instead of answering, Seraphina raised her hands, and Zara felt the world around them shift. The battlefield, the smoke, the sounds of war, all of it faded until they stood in what looked like a twisted reflection of the ballroom where this had all began. But here, the crystal chandeliers dripped with blood, and the polished marble floor was cracked and stained with dark magic. A little privacy for our conversation, Seraphina explained. We wouldn't want to be interrupted. Zara reached out through her bond with Kiran, but found only empty air. Whatever this place was, it existed outside normal reality. She was truly alone. 300 years ago, Seraphina continued, her voice taking on the cadence of a lecture, my ancestors helped orchestrate the extinction of the moon blessed. Not out of fear, as the history books claim, but out of necessity. You see, there's something the old texts don't mention about soul weavers, something that makes them incredibly valuable to those who know how to harvest their gifts. Harvest? The word came out as barely a whisper. Moon-blessed power isn't just about healing, darling. It's about creation. The ability to weave souls together, to bind lives across lifetimes, to literally reshape the fundamental nature of what someone is. Seraphina's eyes gleamed with hungry anticipation. Imagine what someone could accomplish with that kind of power flowing through their veins. Zara backed away, her own power instinctively rising to meet the threat. Golden light began to flow around her, but it felt weak compared to the darkness Seraphina commanded. The blood magic ritual is quite elegant, Seraphina continued, stalking forward. It requires the willing sacrifice of a moon blessed at the moment of their greatest power. The bond with a true mate provides the necessary catalyst, all that love and devotion and spiritual connection, just waiting to be claimed. You're insane. I'm practical. With your power added to mine, I'll be able to do more than just rule a single kingdom. I'll be able to reshape the very nature of werewolf society, to bind every pack to my will through their soul bonds. A true empire, lasting for centuries. The dark magic lashed out without warning, wrapping around Zara like chains of shadow. She cried out as the power began to drain from her, flowing towards Seraphina in streams of corrupted light. But even as her strength was being stolen, Zara felt something else, a familiar warmth cutting through the darkness. Kieran's presence, burning like a star across the void that separated them. Their mate bond might be blocked by Seraphina's magic, but the connection between their souls ran deeper than any spell could reach. "Find me," she projected with every ounce of will she possessed. "I need you." The response came immediately, filled with fury and determination and a love so fierce it made the shadows around her recoil. "Hold on. I'm coming." Seraphina felt the shift and snarled in frustration. "Persistent, isn't he? No matter. By the time he breaks through my barriers, the ritual will be complete." The draining intensified, and Zara felt her consciousness beginning to fragment. Her power was being torn away piece by piece, leaving ragged wounds in her soul that might never heal. But she refused to give up. Couldn't give up, not when Kieran needed her, not when their people were dying in a war that had been orchestrated from the beginning. Through her fading connection to the real world, she felt the moment when the battle outside shifted. Kieran had abandoned the fight against Marcus's forces and was tearing through reality itself to reach her, his alpha power burning away Seraphina's magical defenses like paper. But it might not be enough. The ritual was almost complete, Zara's stolen power flowing into Seraphina like a river of liquid gold. Soon there would be nothing left to save. That's when she realized the truth that had been staring her in the face since the beginning. She didn't have to be saved. She had to choose. "You made one mistake," Zara gasped, raising her head to meet Seraphina's triumphant gaze. "Did I? You assumed I was the victim in this ritual." Golden light exploded from Zara's body, not flowing outward to be stolen, but turning inward, wrapping around her own soul like armor. "But I'm not just moon-blessed. I'm mate-bonded to the most powerful Alpha King in centuries. That makes me something you never planned for. What are you doing?" For the first time, uncertainty crept into Seraphina's voice. "I'm a soul weaver," Zara said, her power building to levels that made the air itself sing. "I can see the threads that bind every soul together. Including yours." She reached out, not with her hands but with her gift, and grasped the dark threads that connected Seraphina to her stolen magic, to her centuries of accumulated power, to the very essence of what made her a threat. And she began to unravel them. Seraphina screamed as her carefully constructed magical defenses collapsed, as the power she'd gathered over lifetimes was stripped away thread by thread. The twisted ballroom around them began to dissolve, reality reasserting itself as Seraphina's hold on the magical space failed. But the effort was costing Zara everything. She could feel her own life force burning away as she worked, her connection to Kieran growing fainter with each passing second. The mate bond that had been her salvation was now a countdown to her destruction. If she died destroying Seraphina, Kieran would follow within hours. Their people would be left leaderless in the middle of a civil war, vulnerable to every ambitious alpha who wanted to claim the throne. She had to choose, save herself and let Seraphina escape to try again, or sacrifice everything to end the threat once and for all. Through their bond, she felt Kieran finally break through the last of the magical barriers. He materialized in the collapsing space around them, his wolf form magnificent and terrible in his fury. Their eyes met across the chaos, and in that moment, he understood exactly what she was planning to do. "No," he projected with desperate intensity. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," she replied, her love for him flowing through their connection like sunlight. "But you'll survive this. The kingdom will survive. That's what matters. You're what matters." But it was too late. Zara poured the last of her strength into unraveling Seraphina's essence, watching with grim satisfaction as the dark witch crumbled to ash. The stolen power she'd accumulated over centuries exploded outward in a wave of purifying light that would cleanse the battlefield of dark magic and foreign influence. As her consciousness faded, Zara felt Kieran catch her falling body, felt his anguish as their bond began to fray. "I love you," she managed to whisper across their connection. Remember that. The world went dark. But death, it turned out, was not the end of the story. Zara awoke to the sensation of sunlight on her face and the steady rhythm of a heartbeat beneath her cheek. For a moment, she thought she might be dreaming. The pain was gone, the terrible draining emptiness that had consumed her during the ritual replaced by a sense of completeness that made her soul sing. There you are, Kieran's voice rumbled beneath her ear, rough with exhaustion and relief. I was beginning to think you were going to sleep forever. She lifted her head to find herself lying on his chest in what looked like their private chambers in the castle. Through the windows, she could see clear blue sky and the green hills of their territory, peaceful and unmarked by war. How long? She whispered. 3 days. The longest 3 days of my life. His arms tightened around her, and she could feel the echoes of his terror through their bond. I thought I'd lost you. I thought you had too. She sat up slowly, marveling at the fact that she could move without pain. But I feel different. Stronger. That's because you are stronger. The voice came from the doorway, where an elderly woman Zara didn't recognize stood watching them with ancient, knowing eyes. The ritual backfired on Serafina in ways she never could have anticipated. Who are you? Zara asked. Elder Moon Whisper, Kieran answered, his voice filled with reverence. She's the last surviving member of the old circle of mages. She arrived just after you collapsed. The elder stepped into the room, her long white hair gleaming with silver threads that seemed to move with a life of their own. Child, what you did should have killed you. By all the laws of magic, unraveling a soul as twisted as Serafina's while mate bondage should have destroyed you both. Then how? Because you didn't just destroy her power, Elder Moon Whisper explained, settling into a chair beside the bed. You purified it. Transformed it. And when magic that pure is released at the moment of true sacrifice, it seeks out the worthiest vessel to inhabit. Understanding dawned in Zara's mind. It came back to me. Enhanced by your mate bond, amplified by your willingness to die for love and duty, and refined by the very bloodline that made you so valuable in the first place. The elder smiled. You're not just moon-blessed anymore, child. You're something entirely new. Something the old texts never imagined. Through their bond, Zara felt Kieran's wonder and pride mixing with his relief. She was alive. They were both alive. And somehow, impossibly, she was more powerful than ever. What about the war? She asked. Marcus? The foreign alphas? Fled, Kieran said with satisfaction. The moment Serafina's influence was cleansed from the battlefield, half of Marcus's allies realized they'd been manipulated by dark magic. The rest retreated when they saw what happened to their witch. And the kingdom? Stronger than ever. Word of what you did has spread to every Pack territory. No one questions your right to rule anymore. His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining as golden light flickered between them. You saved us all. Elder Moon Whisper rose from her chair, her expression growing serious. But with great power comes great responsibility. There will be others who seek to claim what you are, others who see opportunity in your gifts. The trials ahead will test not just your strength, but your wisdom. We'll face them together, Zara said firmly, her free hand covering their joined ones. Through their bond, she felt Kieran's absolute agreement. Yes, the elder agreed, her ancient eyes twinkling with something that might have been approval. I believe you will. As the old woman left them alone, Zara settled back into Kieran's arms and let herself truly believe, for the first time, that they might actually have a future together. The price of truth had been higher than she'd ever imagined. But love, it turned out, was priceless. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. 6 months after Serafina's defeat, the kingdom had found an uneasy peace. But as Zara stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, watching the moon slowly turn crimson in the night sky, she knew that peace was about to be shattered. The blood moon rose with ominous beauty, its red light casting everything in shades of copper and shadow. Around her, she could feel the supernatural energy building. Every werewolf in the kingdom would be feeling it, their abilities amplified, their wolves closer to the surface than ever before. But there was something else in the air tonight. Something wrong. Through her bond with Kieran, she felt him approaching before she heard his footsteps. He joined her on the balcony, his arms wrapping around her from behind, but she could sense the tension in his body, the way his wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin. "The scouts have returned," he said quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "Marcus has been gathering followers in the Northern Territories. Dark magic practitioners, rogue witches, wolves who've been cast out from their packs." "How many?" "Enough." His arms tightened around her. "And there's something else. Reports of wolves dying in their sleep, their life force simply gone. The pattern is spreading south." Zara closed her eyes, extending her enhanced senses beyond the castle walls. What she found made her blood run cold. Threads of darkness spreading across the kingdom like a spider's web, each one pulsing with familiar malevolent energy. "She's alive," Zara whispered. "Seraphina's alive." "That's impossible. You unraveled her very essence." "I unraveled what I could see of it." Zara turned in his arms, meeting his golden gaze. "But she's had centuries to hide pieces of herself in dark places. The blood moon is giving her enough power to regenerate." As if summoned by her words, a scream echoed across the night, not from the castle, but from the village below. Then another. And another. Through the windows, they could see people collapsing in the streets, their life force being drawn away by invisible threads towards something in the distant darkness. "The ritual," Kieran said grimly. "She's trying to complete it on a massive scale." Zara nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. Under the blood moon, with enough life force, she could transform into something beyond what any witch has ever become. Something that could drain the essence from every werewolf in existence. "Then we stop her. We try." But even as she said the words, Zara felt a chill of premonition. This wouldn't be like their previous confrontations. Under the blood moon's influence, with so much stolen power at her disposal, Seraphina would be nearly unstoppable. Unless... "Kieran," she said slowly, an idea forming that made her soul ache with its implications. "There's a way. A binding ritual that could combine our powers completely. Make us strong enough to face whatever she's become." "What kind of binding?" Zara met his eyes, knowing he would see the truth in hers. "Soul binding. Permanent and irreversible. Our life forces would be completely intertwined. We could never be apart for more than a few hours without dying." He was quiet for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what she was suggesting. As king, he would need to travel, to lead armies, to make diplomatic visits to distant territories. She would need to do the same as his queen. A soul binding would limit them both in ways that could affect the entire kingdom. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked finally. Their answer came in the form of horn blasts from the castle walls, the signal for enemy forces approaching. Through their bond, Zara felt Kieran's grim determination as he shifted into full alpha mode. "Not long enough," he said. They raced to the battlements to find the northern horizon ablaze with unnatural light. An army was approaching, not just Marcus's rebels, but something far worse. Through the blood moon's glow, Zara could see shapes that were no longer entirely human, wolves twisted by dark magic into monstrous forms. And at their head, barely recognizable as the elegant noblewoman she'd once been, came Seraphina. The witch had indeed transformed herself into something beyond human comprehension. Her body was wreathed in shadows that moved with independent life, her eyes burned like stars gone nova, and around her flowed the stolen life force of hundreds of werewolves, giving her power that made the very air tremble. "My dear friends," her voice echoed across the distance, amplified by magic until it reached every ear in the castle. "Did you truly think death could stop me? I am beyond such mortal concerns now. What do you want?" Kieran called back, his alpha voice carrying easily across the battlefield. "What I've always wanted. The girl's power. But now I'll take the entire kingdom as well. Seraphina's laugh was the sound of breaking glass and dying hopes. You see, under the blood moon, I can drain life force without requiring willing sacrifice. Every werewolf in your territory will feed my transformation, until I become something even the old gods would fear. Over my dead body. Oh, that can certainly be arranged. Seraphina gestured, and from the ranks of her twisted army stepped a familiar figure. Prince Marcus emerged, but like the others, he was no longer entirely himself. Dark magic had changed him, made him larger, more feral, his eyes glowing with unnatural hunger. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that hurt to hear. Brother, he called out with mock affection. I challenge you to ritual combat for the right to rule. Ancient law demands you answer, or forfeit the throne. Kieran's hands clenched on the stone battlements. The challenge couldn't be refused. To do so would break the sacred bonds that held werewolf society together. But accepting meant facing Marcus alone while Seraphina worked her magic on their people. And while you two play at being warriors, Seraphina added with silky malice, I'll be having a private conversation with your lovely mate. Just the two of us, woman to woman. The trap was perfect. Ancient law would keep Kieran and Zara separated during their respective battles, preventing them from combining their strength when they needed it most. There has to be another way, Zara whispered, but even as she said it, she knew there wasn't. The laws governing ritual combat were older than the kingdom itself, woven into the very fabric of what it meant to be werewolf. The soul binding, Kieran said quietly. If we do it now, before the battles begin. The ritual takes time. And we'd need to be touching throughout the entire process. Zara's mind raced through the ancient texts she'd studied. But there might be a way to start it now and complete it later. A partial binding that would let us share power across distance. What's the risk? If we can't complete it within the next few hours, the partial bond will tear our souls apart. Kieran didn't hesitate. Do it. They pressed their palms together right there on the battlements, golden and silver light beginning to flow between them as Zara spoke the opening words of the soul-binding ritual. The magic wrapped around them like liquid starlight, sinking into their bones, their hearts, the very essence of what they were. But before the ritual could progress beyond the initial binding, horns sounded from below. The enemy army had reached the castle walls. Remember, Kieran said as they broke apart, the incomplete bonds singing between them like a half-finished song, no matter what happens, we finish this together. Together, Zara agreed, and then they were running, him toward the main gates where Marcus waited, her toward the eastern courtyard where Seraphina's dark presence called to her like a spider to a fly. The battle that followed would be remembered in werewolf legend for centuries. Kieran met his brother in the ancient dueling circle, their combat witnessed by both armies under the blood moon's crimson gaze. But this wasn't the Marcus he'd grown up with. Dark magic had turned his younger brother into something barely recognizable, faster and stronger than any normal werewolf should be. Meanwhile, in the eastern courtyard, Zara faced Seraphina alone. The witch had grown even more monstrous in the short time since her arrival, shadows pouring from her like living smoke, her stolen power making reality bend around her. You cannot imagine, Seraphina purred as they circled each other, what it feels like to hold the life force of hundreds in your hands. Their memories, their loves, their fears, all of it flowing through me like the sweetest wine. Let them go, Zara demanded, her own power rising to meet the threat. Your fight is with me. Oh, but they're so useful. Watch. Seraphina gestured, and Zara felt the life force being drained from werewolves across the kingdom, not enough to kill them instantly, but enough to weaken them, to make them suffer. Through her enhanced connection to her people, she could feel their pain as if it were her own. Every moment you delay, Seraphina continued, more of them die. How long can you bear their agony before you surrender to me? It was psychological warfare at its cruelest, but it also revealed Seraphina's weakness. She needed to maintain concentration to keep draining so many people at once. If Zara could disrupt that focus. The battle between them began with Zara launching herself forward, golden light streaming from her hands like liquid fire. Seraphina met the attack with shadows that moved like living things, the the two forces clashing in explosions of light and darkness that lit up the night sky. But even as they fought, Zara could feel Kieran's battle through their incomplete bond. Marcus was stronger than expected, his dark magic enhancements making him nearly unstoppable. Worse, she could sense something else, a familiar poison flowing through Kieran's system. The curse. It was back. Through their soul connection, she suddenly understood the truth that had been hidden from her for months. The original curse hadn't been completely destroyed when she'd first healed Kieran. It had been waiting, dormant, held back by his will and their mate bond. But every time she'd used her power to heal others, every time she'd drawn on their connection for strength, the curse had tried to jump from him to her. And Kieran had been stopping it. Taking the poison into himself, letting it burn through his system rather than contaminate their bond. His addiction to her touch hadn't been weakness, it had been him sacrificing his own health to protect her from the curse's influence. Now, separated by the ritual combat laws and facing his brother's enhanced abilities, Kieran was finally losing the battle against the poison in his veins. "I can feel it," she projected to him through their bond. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have tried to take it on yourself," came his reply, strained with pain and effort as he dodged another of Marcus's attacks. "And the curse would have killed you in hours. My alpha constitution can handle what would destroy anyone else. Not forever. Long enough." But Zara could feel through their connection that long enough was running out. The curse was winning, eating away at Kieran's strength just when he needed it most. In minutes, maybe less, it would overwhelm his defenses entirely. She had to choose, abandon her battle with Seraphina to help Kieran, or trust him to hold on while she eliminated the greater threat. The choice was made for her when Seraphina's power surged, the witch drawing on the life force of even more werewolves to fuel a massive attack. Shadows erupted from her like a living tsunami, washing over Zara with crushing force. But instead of trying to resist the darkness, Zara embraced it. Her moon-blessed power had evolved since her confrontation with the witch months ago. Now, instead of simply healing, she could transform negative energy into positive, could take curses and poisons into herself and neutralize them through her connection with Kieran. The shadows poured into her, along with all the stolen life force Seraphina had been hoarding. Pain beyond description racked Zara's body as she absorbed the concentrated agony of hundreds of werewolves, but she held on, using her bond with Kieran to channel the poison into him. His alpha constitution could handle it. Had to handle it. But as the life force flowed between them, completing a circuit that had never been achieved before, something unexpected happened. The incomplete soul-binding ritual activated. Power exploded through both of them, not just their individual abilities, but something entirely new. Zara's golden healing light intertwined with Kieran's silver alpha dominance, creating platinum threads of energy that bound them not just spiritually but magically. Through their perfected connection, Zara could channel all of Seraphina's stolen power directly into Kieran, who used it to overwhelm Marcus's dark magic enhancements. The corrupted prince fell with a scream that shattered windows throughout the castle. At the same moment, Kieran's alpha power flowed back to Zara, giving her the strength to complete what she'd started. Her hand pressed against Seraphina's chest, and this time when she began unraveling the witch's essence, there was nothing left to regenerate from. Seraphina crumbled to dust for the final time, her stolen power flowing back to its rightful owners across the kingdom. When the magical energies finally settled, Zara found herself kneeling in the courtyard with Kieran's arms around her, both of them glowing with the platinum light of their completed soul bond. "Is it over?" she whispered. "The immediate threat, yes." He helped her to her feet, and she marveled at how right it felt, how complete. The soul binding hadn't diminished either of them, it had made them stronger, two halves of a greater whole. "But we have work to do." Around them, the surviving members of Marcus's army were surrendering, the dark magic that had compelled many of them already fading. The kingdom would need to heal, to rebuild, to learn from the mistakes that had led to this conflict. "The curse?" Zara asked. "Gone. Completely neutralized by our bond." Kieran's smile was radiant. Apparently, when a moon-blessed and an alpha king are soul-bound under a blood moon, very little can stand against their combined will. As dawn approached, they stood before their people in the castle's great hall, those who had survived the night, those who had remained loyal, those who were ready to build something better. The blood moon was setting, but its light still streamed through the tall windows, illuminating Zara and Kieran as they prepared to take the oaths that would make their rule official. By the light of the blood moon, Kieran began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "I swear to rule not through dominance alone, but through the bonds that connect us all." By the grace of the moon blessed, Zara continued, her hand intertwined with his, their combined power visible as threads of platinum light, "I swear to heal not just bodies, but the divisions that have weakened our people." Together, they spoke the final words, "We are soul-bound, heart to heart, life to life, strength to strength. What one cannot accomplish alone, two shall achieve together. This we swear under the blood moon's witness." The platinum light erupted around them, washing over everyone present, and suddenly every person in the hall could feel it, the bonds that connected them all, pack to pack, individual to individual, ruler to subject. Not bonds of dominance or fear, but of mutual support and shared strength. When the light faded, Kieran and Zara stood transformed. Still themselves, but also something more. The first true soul-bound rulers in werewolf history, their hands intertwined and glowing with combined power that would reshape their world. Outside, the blood moon set over a kingdom that had been broken but would rise stronger than ever. Inside, a king and queen began the work of building a future where strength came not from standing alone, but from the courage to reach out and trust in the bonds that made them all stronger together. Their story was complete, but their greatest adventure, ruling with wisdom, love, and the unbreakable connection between their souls, was just beginning. She's close enough to touch him now, close enough to see the pain etched in every line of his face. But I can fix this. I can reweave the bonds. Don't. His voice comes out strangled. Everyone who touches me dies. But it's too late. Kieran's strength finally gives out, and he collapses forward. Instinct takes over. Zara reaches out to steady him, her bare hand pressing against the cursed flesh of his chest. The world explodes in golden light. Power flows between them like a river breaking free from a dam. Not her power, she's never had any, but something deeper. Something that recognizes the broken threads and knows exactly how to mend them. For the first time in months, the burning in Kieran's chest eases. The constant war between man and wolf quiets to a whisper. His vision clears, the red haze of rage lifting like morning fog. And there, kneeling beside him with her hand on his heart, is the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. "Who are you?" he breathes. Zara stares back at him, golden light still flickering between her fingers. The curse hasn't killed her. If anything, she feels more alive than she ever has before. "Zara," she whispers. "Zara Nightwind." His hand covers hers, pressing it harder against his chest. The golden light pulses brighter, and she can see the threads beginning to knit themselves back together. "How?" he asks again. She looks into his eyes, clear now, no longer burning with madness, and gives him the only answer she has. "I don't know." Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.